Hello,
Hi, everyone.
and welcome to the 5th edition of Sesamers on Tour. Our team at Startup Sesame has been working hard to bring you new and exciting content every week to explore different tech ecosystems. From our kickoff event in Paris to our session last week about Africa, we are making our way around the globe every single Tuesday. If you want to know more about the tour and sign up for updates, head over to tour.sesamers.com.
Hello, hi, everyone.
Today, and welcome to the 5th is our 5th stop, and we're not covering one country, but 3, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. In collaboration with the Merge Conference, the session will explore trends, deals, and innovations happening in these countries. Tickets are still available for the conference, and you can find the link in the chat. Our partner Merge is one of the leading tech conferences in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Their annual conference will be taking place in a hybrid format over 2 days beginning tomorrow. And now I'm passing it off to Aline Nilsson, co-founder of Emerge, to begin the session.
Thanks very much, Tara, for the lovely introduction. So I'm going to head over with our introduction to the ecosystems in the key countries in the Eastern Europe, which are Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. And today with me, I have representatives of the ecosystems in these countries. So please welcome Jane Klepa, who is an executive director at 1991 Open Data Incubator in Ukraine.
Hi, everyone.
We have Kirill Golub, who is a board member of the Belarus Business Angels Association, Angels Band.
Hello.
And we have Ira Yashina, who is an ex-investor at the Untitled Ventures, also a startup consultant and founder of the community Ladies Who Tech.
Hello, everyone.
And on the startup side, we've got Alexandra Gerasimova, who's a co-founder and CEO at Fitmost, which is a subscription marketplace covering hundreds of fitness studios and centers in Russia.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Well, and myself, I'm Aline, the co-founder of Emerge, and I will be leading the session today. So first, to begin with, could you just each introduce yourself, explain how long have you been in the tech in general, and what's your contribution to the ecosystem? Jane, shall we start with you? You look so confused.
Sure. Yeah. Hi again. Yeah, my name is Jane, as you understand, and I'm an executive director at 1991 Open Data Incubator for the last 5 years, actually. But previously, I organized my own projects. It's international exhibitions and conferences in tech industry in Ukraine and Russia and Poland. And I'm connected with the tech ecosystem actually more than 8 years even. Yeah. Here in Ukraine, I'm not only working with startups in our accelerator and with our partners as corporate sector, but also we are support very huge impact tech projects like transforming our government sector and public sector. So we have like different programs for that. Also, I'm working with women entrepreneurship and actively involved in women in tech community here in Ukraine as an ambassador, and we also have different international bridges. For example, with Berlin, we have Ukraine and Germany programs for women in tech and female founders or co-founders. So it's only little part of my work and everyday work. But if we talk about working with startups, this framework is very huge for me because it's more not about work, about my decision, about my lifestyle, more about that, because I'm also advisor and mentor not only for startups with whom we are working in our accelerator, but for international startups too. For example, I'm working with international community Impact to Tech. It's also for impact tech startups. And I'm mentoring these projects from all over the world. And this my pro bono part, because I'm really proud that I can do that and I can support such projects. So, of course, we are working as a 1991 with different startups as PatentBot, for example, or Updraft. We have an exit last year with them because it's our alumni and Y Combinator alumni at all. So it's a little bit about me, but I am sure that today in our conversation I can tell you more details about super nice startups in Ukraine, and I hope that you know them, and maybe it will be a surprise for you to think about that. Wow, it's Ukrainian startup. So yeah, but it will be later today.
I think we'll have plenty of surprises like that later on,
Yeah.
speaking of the YC alumni and some like global companies. But following actually the women in tech theme, because I remember, so on myself, I'm based in Sweden, but before that, I was based in London for almost like 10 years. And I was leading a Russian-speaking tech community in London before Emerge. And I remember I was interviewed by BBC talking about women in STEM from Eastern Europe and how surprisingly there were so many of us coming from that region. So Ira, you were also leading the Women in Tech community in Russia. So please introduce how you got involved with that and your VC background. So over to you.
Yeah, well, hello everyone once again, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. For some time, like for 5 years or something, I was representing more VC scene, I mean the side of investors, and I was working in the venture fund. But as Alina has already mentioned, I was also developing the topic of women in tech. And I think that the pandemic situation that we've got last year actually accelerated some of the processes. And I think that we are definitely in the era of changes and of modifications. That's why I can't say I agree with okay, I agree with Jane. I can't say that we are just like specialists in something. We're investors, or we are startups, or we are ecosystem. We're just in general into everything. But yeah, I think I will speak more from the angle of investors and of mentor, who I am right now, and I'm working independently with startups on their side, let's say it like that, and also from the point of view of Ladies Who Tech, as my community is called, which has been developed from just a chat of girls from different functions and different angles in technologies, from developers up to PR managers in startups, because why not? We're all in tech. And we have been growing from the chat to mentorship weekends and up for the conference that I hope will be this year. There is too early to make any announcements, but still looking forward to any of your comments probably. So yeah, let's have a great talk.
Okay, thank you very much. And to add a bit of diversity into our women thoughts, Kirill, please share with us, how did you get into becoming an angel investor, and how did Belarus transform since you joined the ecosystem?
Thank you, Alina. Once again, hi everyone. My name is Cyril. I prefer to pronounce my name in English manner. And I could say that almost all of my life is dedicated to software development business. We have started our own software development company almost 18 years ago, and here in Belarus. And our company was one of the very first software development companies in Belarus who didn't provide outsourcing services, but provide development of software products and selling licenses, not working hours of developers and programmers. After 16 years of operations, we successfully exited from our company and sold the whole business to American Holding. And in 2018, we decided to start our local Belarusian Business Angels network. We called it Angels Band because our gathering is, let's say, our fellowship is not a formal unity of business angels, but a group of fellows, a group of like-minded people who are willing and who are ready to support high technology startups in software development niche, and to help our local Belarusian businessmen, young IT entrepreneurs to succeed globally in Western Europe, in the United States, and all over the world. So today, Angels Band celebrating the third anniversary, and it unites more than 90 local venture investors, not only from Belarus and neighboring countries, but also from Western Europe, from Russia, and from the United States. Our main goal is to support young entrepreneurs, as I previously said, and the last but not least, we are trying to open an opportunities for our private investors to invest worldwide, not only in local startups, but in startups residing in Western Europe, residing in the United States, and everyone who are willing to go global.
Excellent.
That's all in short words.
Thanks for the intro, Cyril. And basically, we covered sort of an incubator accelerator view. We've covered the angels point of view and the sort of VC investor background. So now it's time for a startup to introduce. Alexandra, please share a few words. How did you got into this world?
Well, I co-founded my first startup when I was 18. The experience was short and not really successful, of course, but I just realized that startups is my passion, and I want to study it. I want to work there. So I actually left for France for a year to do my master in entrepreneurship and innovation. And after that, I came to Moscow and worked for a year or so in a healthcare IT startup, but of course, dreaming of funding my own one and searching for ideas. By that time, there were a lot of marketplaces in different areas and sectors. We got Uber in Russia, we got different healthcare marketplaces, food tech, where you can order any food from the restaurant. And yet I started to do some sports and exercise, and I saw that actually for decades nothing was changing in Russia from the technology point of view in fitness and wellness market. So I've decided that it should be done, and I co-founded Fitmost with my two partners. We decided to build an app where you can book any activity you want, and nowadays it's both online and offline, so that you could just buy your membership, and it takes only seconds to book any class that you want, to find any class you need, and so that it was easier to try new types of classes and not to be somehow bounded to those barriers that stop you from exercising.
And how long have you been working on that?
We co-founded it 5 years ago, so basically we are almost like 5 years. Yeah, almost 5 years right now.
Quite a long startup journey already.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving forward to sort of covering the ecosystem in general and our countries, I mean, I would like to start maybe with some sort of not stereotypical, but they are sort of well-known facts about our countries, like what are our countries known for globally. And I could kind of express my view. I think overall the countries are known for our sort of cheap IT stuff and like outsourcing, and that has been like for decades. But I think globally, what the overall community is missing is that it's actually, yes, it's been there for many years, but it's not limited to that, right? And our countries has moved on and like progressed in so many other different ways. So can you maybe share in your own countries what were the highlights of the past couple of years? Maybe some like known deals, maybe some tech companies came into your country and opened an office. So what were the highlights for the ecosystem recently? Jane, you want to start?
Actually, yes. As I mentioned previously, because I have this experience for the last 8-10 years, not only in Ukraine but abroad too, and I see how it was and how it's now. I saw that we're very fast in our country. I mean, if we talk about some new products, startups, we're becoming more faster than 10 years ago, of course. If we talk about, for example, some mindset, it's about passion. It became more passionate than previously because 10 years ago, it was like tech ecosystem and startup ecosystem in our country was so fresh and new, and it's more about hype than about content and real cool ideas. Even few companies are really successful from that time to now. But if we talk about successful projects now, they are not like, how to explain, they're not so huge, I mean, these companies, but they are so impressive, not only in our country, but abroad. For example, Reface case, because Reface is an app of Ukrainian team, and they're not so huge as a team, but it's a revolution technology, and their impressive growth so fast, like it's not like yes, sure, and they're number one in iOS or even Android markets, and they have investments more than $5 million deal last year, and that's a great result for such a young team. But of course, if we talk about some unicorns or something like that, well-known company, Ukrainian US company, Grammarly, who has a huge office here in Kyiv and in Ukraine. So they're also as a prominent case for our country. But of course, we have some cases not so well known as their name as a company. For example, Riddle company, because it's a most famous vendor for Apple. Their application as PDF scan or Spark mails, they are well known as a product. But if we talk about Riddle as a company, even in Ukraine, not everyone can talk about that and what company, what they do. But that's a huge case because this well-known company, vendor number one for Apple, and their growth is with zero investments from, from VC funds or angel investors. Their growth originally by themselves. That's a cool cases from very little part of cool cases in our country. But if we compare, for example, with Germany for Berlin, where we have 5 unicorns even in one Berlin, that's the contrast between our countries, and that's not a problem, but the issue of the mindset. And I think that our young ecosystem, which are in building process now, it could stay here and be such competitive. We have competitive advantages, of course, not about cheap talents, but about prominent talents. So that's why I think that we will be like Berlin unicorns even in 5 years, but in 5 years it will be very fast. I really hope so, yeah.
I was actually looking at some statistics for VC market in Russia, and there was a report recently published for 2020 year, and it said that the number of international investment into Russian companies like almost doubled from last year, which sort of shows and I assume there is maybe similar trend in neighboring countries. So I assume that international investors are sort of showing more interest towards the local startups. Cyril, have you noticed any sort of patterns with Belarusian companies?
I did, and that's why. Let's talk about not later than 2019, because the previous COVID year, 2020, was really unexpected and got an unexpected events, unexpected disasters to our country due to unfair presidential election and so on. But a year ago, Belarus was really hot country when we are speaking about tech companies and venture investments into that. First of all, you know that legislation and startup law regulations in Belarus is really cool. It includes a number of venture capital friendly points. So from the point of legal attorney, it is completely clear that you, being not resident of Belarus and not living in the neighboring country, are ready to make investment into Belarusian legal entities, and without any doubt, you know. But of course, for many companies, it is better to establish presence in Western Europe or even in Baltic countries in order to streamline the process of fundraising and attracting investments from Western European funds and funds from the United States. Beside that, I'm completely sure that our latest achievements, such kind of selling large and high technology companies such as iMatter, sold to Google in 2017, like many of mobile development companies and casual gaming companies such as EasyBrain, Melsoft, and many other. They did great deals with venture capital abroad. And these examples are very helpful for other IT businessmen who are willing to establish real global international presence. But for now, I don't think that investing in Belarusian legal entities are good ideas, because it's much easier to find the same guys who have been relocated to neighboring countries and established their presence in Baltic countries, in Poland, in Germany, and so on. So to say this, to cover this topic shortly, I don't think that we will hear about significant acquisitions from neighboring venture capital or private equity funds with deals where Belarusian legal entities are involved.
Yeah, it's quite sad, isn't it? I mean, we definitely don't want to go into politics today, but I mean, you can't really avoid mentioning that it does influence a lot the founders coming from our countries. And I don't know, actually, Jane, it's quite interesting to hear your opinion about sort of Ukrainian background, but I can certainly say that like for Russian startups, or probably now even Belarusian startups, like most of the companies open legal entities elsewhere, and when they do sort of global PR, when they do fundraise from global VCs, they all start mentioning calling themselves as like London-based company, like US company, and so on. And it's quite sad, because obviously, I mean, it's understandable, right? Because they need to grow their business, but it's quite sad for the ecosystem, because obviously, like the origins of these companies come from our countries, and most of the R&D teams remain locally, right? So how is it with Ukrainian startups? Do they hide their nationality, or is it more or less fine now?
I think it's more about sector actually, because if we talk about, for example, cybersecurity sector is it's very closed and very hard, and startups and product teams in this sector, of course, it's too hard to be Ukrainian startup in cybersecurity. But if we talk about, for example, easily, if we talk about some SaaS startups or even hardware startups, some of them, of course, based in Delaware or something like that. But of course, a huge part Ukrainian. That's like Ukrainian label. That's more about investors. As for me, as I see in last years, it's more about some points from investors and their relationships with the startup. But if we talk about legal entity and some legal and policy making here in Ukraine, it's transforming now, and it's a plus for entrepreneurship, because we have a startup as not like business, small business, medium business, but startup as a point in a legal entity, and that's good news for our entrepreneurs. Of course, super nice that we have now DSCT project. That's a new project of Ukrainian government. That's some easy way for IT industry and tech industry, not for only for Ukrainians, but also for companies who want to register their or open their offices here in Ukraine, because it's has some discounts and some easier policies when they want to register here. Actually, I saw in the last 5 years, I saw many cases of huge R&Ds here in Ukraine, and I saw that trend in opening new R&Ds, even in international companies in Ukraine. For example, very good security. It's a US project in cybersecurity. Actually, they have a huge R&D team and office here in Ukraine. If we talk about deal maybe 5 years ago, with Amazon and Ring Ukraine. So the company Ring Ukraine, they have a huge team here and R&D center here. So it's more about sector as for me now, but I have great news for not only Ukrainian startups, but for our community ecosystem news that we have some many points and many ways to have a legacy, and it will be easier in Ukraine, even for startups.
That's great news. I know actually. I think when it comes to fintech in Russia, it's actually quite a pride to be a Russian entrepreneur. But not so many people globally know that. But I can say from my experience, after living so many years in the UK and dealing with the bank systems, like traditional bank systems before Revolut came into the market, and others sort of followed, like Monzo in the UK or N21 in Germany. It's so outdated. It's so old-fashioned. All these like retail banks are just like so slow, really. Whereas like in Russia, just like even normal high street banks, they were like super innovative, super high tech, and something that was just like normal and basic service in Russian banks, it was just something like mind-blowing in the UK. And when Revolut came, which is like a online mobile banking founded by a Russian guy, yet he's been sort of based in the UK for so many years, nobody knew that it was a Russian founder. And then we had some, you may want to share what were the recent highlights in the Russian ecosystem. I'm a bit
Yeah,
because I'm originally Russian, so I know a bit more stuff about Russian ecosystem than other countries. But I'll
well,
let you.
you're helping me. You're helping my side, playing my team and so on. But actually, I want, I guess, to point out or maybe to make some contrast with what Jane and Cyril have already mentioned. And I think that in Russia, there is a gap between people who understand how it is to make an international growth rate and to go on and to strive and to go over the ocean, let's say, like to the USA, for example. The recent example, I could say, it's Miro. It's an interactive dashboard startup for companies and teams that are actually not from Moscow, which is already a sign of pride for me, I guess. And also, but on the other side of this scale, we can see that some teams do not understand the speed of startup in here. I mean, they're tech savvy people and they understand a lot, but they do not understand with what speed they need to move on in order to succeed. And that's why I guess there are lots of also not startups, but startup-ish set of startups, of tech companies, I'm sorry, that are not growing very fast, but they have inside very good technology or algorithms or in general automation system. Also, I want to add on that in Russia, if you are not moving internationally, you can find a good strategic purchaser inside the country. What I mean is there is a set of strategic investors like the leading bank, Sberbank, or the leading internet companies like Yandex or Mail.ru, who can actually acquire at a quite a good price. I mean, for Russian and even
Basically,
for the
like
European
analogy
countries.
for Google, but like in Russia, like
Yeah,
they
Yandex
have
is like a
different.
local, very strong search engine and the whole ecosystem actually right now. And Mail.ru is more like an emailing service plus also the ecosystem of gaming right now. And actually, this is very interesting because on Russian market, Yandex, Google, and Mail.ru, they were the competitors back in the days in the early 21st century. But right now, they're all going different ways, and I think that average person, average Russian, or average even company uses these whole three ecosystems separately during the day. So yeah, and about the Revolut, I wanted to add that unfortunately, the startups that are going internationally, they tend to not like to pretend that they're not Russians, but they're like losing their roots. I mean, they're trying to not to hide them, but just to, take them away and do not even mention them somehow. And but actually, I don't think that it's only Russian thing or CIS thing, because when you are talking about European startups, sometimes it's quite difficult even to understand which team is from which country, because there are like three co-founders and they're all from, I don't know, German-speaking country, one from German-speaking country, another one from the UK, and third one is from Spain, for example. And you can't say even also from which country they are. Yeah. Yeah, in Russian you can say, okay, you see the Russian name, something like Ivan or I don't know, and then the surname on in or something, and you can guess. But still, maybe it's just a trend in general, like to be global. Once you are.
Yeah, I actually read in that report a comment by Flint Capital, which is again like actually not only entrepreneurs are hiding their roots, but some VCs are doing that as well. Even if they fundraise from sort of Russian-speaking investors, but they position themselves as like global US, Israel-based, like Cyprus.
Probably it's just a generation, I mean, sort of VC generation trend. Like in order to point out that you are a global
And that you
player?
not only in CIS countries, but also international, maybe. But he actually made a point, speaking of this kind of nationality thing, he made a point that he hopes that sort of Russian companies, they explore Middle East and Asian markets for their global expansion, not just US and Europe, because Asia and Middle East, they are more sort of open and friendly towards Eastern European companies, and they don't have that sort of politic.
I guess they have, but they are more like they are deeper into the context cultures, because once you go to the USA, in the USA, everyone speaks the same global English, and you understand the terms. That's why it's kind of a bit scarier. Even in this case, in the US case, Russian people are struggling with just to pronounce something in English sometimes. And in Asian case, you need not just the language, but also the context, the culture. So it's more clicks, as you can say.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask Alexandra, as an entrepreneur and being in the business for 5 years, like as far as I understand, you've established your business quite well in the local market. So what's your perspective on like staying local and becoming successful in your local country versus like going global and expanding to other countries, markets? What are
Yeah, actually, I agree with Irina that it's a trend to go global. And when I say that we don't have any international like plans for international expansion, I always often get this reaction. Not ambitious, but it's which is not really true, because very often companies go globally because Russian market is really small for them, and of course it makes a lot of sense for them to go to American, European, and other markets that are times larger for them. But for us, for example, fitness and wellness market is really nice, and it's growing really fast. Actually, before COVID, it was one of the fastest growing consumer markets in Russia. So it is really interesting for us to stay here, to become strong, and either to become part of this ecosystem of some corporation, Yandex, Mail.ru, or maybe some telecom ecosystem, or to go for IPO and to become public within 4 or 5 years. So for us, this plan seems much more interesting, and then to go globally and to compete for a small share in on a global market, which is actually the global markets for services are really different. And I can say it would actually help us that we spent 5 years in Russia to grow on German or American market, because it's not SaaS. So you have to understand the market, how the wellness market works, which is completely different. So for us, it is okay to be local and to grow, to become a giant company in wellness just in Russia. And of course, we're interested in CIS countries because there are many similarities here. But for now, we stay within the country, and I don't think we're going somewhere abroad within the next year.
And have you gone in your development and growth journey? Have you gone through any accelerator programs? Have you fundraised from angels and VCs, or you bootstrapped and you started generating revenue straight away?
Well, we skipped this angel investment because we wanted to save our shares and postpone the dilution. So we did have our friends and family stage, and then we received seed investment, which was in 2018. We were valued at $5 million per money, and got 1 million investment. It is a family office, so we got a top manager from one of the leading legislation companies in Russia on our board of directors. By the end of 2019, we grew within the investment stage, and then we actually decided to not to fundraise because we were growing fast, and we decided to do it a little bit later because in January, February 2012, we almost had our 50% of our revenue of the previous year. So it was really, everything was really nice. And of course, then COVID happened, and it made some changes within our strategy. So we start to fundraise like this year for the next investment round. But anyway, for us, it is important, and I think it is important in Russia to not only be dependent on the investment money, but also to be able to grow by yourself. So nowadays we are in a stage between cash positive and break even, I would call it so.
That actually leads me to my question to Cyril, because it's just personal observation. You may correct me if I'm wrong, but I've noticed that perhaps because our countries, like the VC market in general, is not so developed comparing with Western Europe or the US, where you can just have an idea, go to a pub, pitch to the next person, and just you have your pre-seed like angels funding. But that's true, because like the VCs money are so like limited, right? And it seems that startups go after like revenue model rather than like hyper growth and then hoping to generate some cash later on. So what's your view on that, Cyril? What are the trends within our startups?
Okay, Aline, I've got your question, but I cannot agree with some points from your speech. First of all, I couldn't say that Belarus is underdeveloped in comparison, let's say, of neighboring countries. You know that in pre-COVID...
Exactly, Belarus. I meant like in general, the region, comparing with Western.
Got it. You know that when you are sitting in a cafe in Estonia or in Latvia or even in Belarus, at least one or two tables were talking about startups, about fundraising, about IT and software. And it is completely clear that not all of them are actually startup founders, not all these guys, but at least half of them are. The second point is you say about limited VC money. I couldn't agree with that because money is not a limitation. A willingness to invest this money into, let's say, specific locations, specific sectors, specific verticals is the question. And the source of this issue is trust. Let's say when someone not from your location is calling you or writing you and say, we have wonderful startup and we are raising $1 million United States dollars, let's say. Your first question for yourself, of course, is who this guy is, what's his personal story, and should I talk to him and should I examine his startup and should I start deep due diligence and so on. And when in the United States, the answer is clear. If you wouldn't, your neighbor would, and who is much faster than their competitors, these guys will win the competition, not only in fundraising, but in finding your future unicorn. And here in Eastern Europe, I do not see such kind of rush. We are, as business angels and as venture investors, are not in pressure of time. We can think about potential future deal weeks. Sometimes we can be thinking months or even a year, because the venture speed here is not so high as in Western Europe and in the United States.
Why is that so? Why do you think it's not that fast?
Because our culture is not intended to put us in rush. Rush is not in our DNA, I mean.
I don't know, maybe it's like
it could be in DNA of Moscow, for example.
Yeah.
And I think it's the maybe the point. And also I see Western European countries that are not so in a rush because of the bureaucratic behind all the bureaucratic things behind. So it's, yeah, probably the overall, I would agree with that. I mean, the USA for sure, and the Asians, once they come to Europe or to Russia, we need to run like rats, I don't know, or hamsters or whomever, because they're up to enormous speed. And this could be an advantage and this could be a disadvantage for us.
Alexander, did you experience any difficulty fundraising in Russia?
I think it's a bit difficult to find money between this period. You can easily find angel money, and you can quite easy find money where you are at a bit later stage, like for round A, when you need to, let's say, from $3 to $5 million, from $5 to $10 million. But in between, there is a gap, and I don't know how to explain it. Probably Irina knows better the ecosystem. But in between, there are not that many companies that actually provide investments between, let's say, $1 million and $5 million.
I see.
Well, it's I think it's like, it's because of the this death valley, and because once you have the idea, you are light, you are I mean, motivated and so on, and you definitely can attract some angels that are also getting up to this enthusiasm and striving and so on. And on the stage A, there is already traction, there are already metrics, everything, all the data. But in between, when you have let's say some, I don't know, hardware or software or something, but no traction at all, it's a bit of psychological insecure, I think. And not so many people, not so many angels, and not so many funds are ready to take on the risk. And this is where I think a huge potential is of Russia, and probably of Belarus and Ukraine as well, and huge pain in the ass, because there is something going on in there, and maybe it's good for the startups. And you can say that Fitmust got into what it's got because of this situation, because there was a hard time sometimes of fundraising during the seed stage, but you overcame it and you became stronger.
Exactly, and let me agree with Ira about the word of risk. Sometimes our venture capitalists and our local business angels are doing weird things, investing money without any structuring a deal, without doing their paperwork. Just say, okay, shut up and take my money. And in other cases, my partners or by business angeling are saying that I don't believe in this project. I hardly can see how it can become a unicorn. And I'm asking in such cases, what kind of unicorn are you going to see in the very early stage? Just invest, structure your deal, get the papers done, and wait 3, 5, 7, or 10 years. That's the proper risk and proper risk profile for a venture investor. Not the case you are trying to find extremely weird business and invest your 20 or 50K.
Actually, speaking of like investment and like preferences, have you seen any maybe like specific industries or technologies that investors like prefer to invest like locally, or in general, like the industries that your countries are like you have most startups in?
Let me start answering this question. I'm thinking just completely.
Why?
Just now I'm thinking that any investor are going to invest in the business sector he's familiar with, but his gut feeling that he should invest into something new, that it is completely unfamiliar for him. So many of venture guys from Belarus and from neighboring countries are trying to invest in CV startups, computer vision startups, because it's hot. But I see that even in Belarus is lack of good teams experienced in CV domain. And sometimes my partners are investing in overhyped words such as artificial intelligence. They do not know exactly what it is, artificial intelligence, but they are trying to find appropriate startups to call them. They are doing AI and to get invested. That's the paradox from my.
And in general, in Belarus, do you see any patterns, like which startups from which industries are skyrocketing in terms of?
Are skyrocketing. I think that all kind of B2C mobile applications are still on hype, and despite that we have not so many good R&D teams, we have good teams that are good in user acquisition in mobile domain, and to how to do mobile marketing and user acquisition in B2C sector.
Got it. And Ira, what about Russian market?
Yeah, I would agree on. I call it, and I think that there is also could be a term of like sexy industries that are for the consumer-based side, B2C, etc. However, I can see that this fundamental trend is going and is broadening. What I mean is the health tech, biotech, or even space tech. I think that this goes up to some inner willingness of the investors to foresee the future, to go on with a heads up to 10 years time or whatsoever. And that's why we can see even the investments of Russian investors and the funds into the European space tech projects or the US or whatsoever. But I don't think that I do not consider it mainly to be startup. I mean, it's more like I don't know, future startup or future fundamental scientific or whatsoever. But I can see that the people are seeking something more beyond the money in that. I mean, they're seeking the motivation to foresee the future probably. So actually, yeah, it's also in between the way.
The future, just like to finish our conversation today, Cyril, maybe you can start. What's your like vision for our neighboring countries' future? Like how are we going to develop? Maybe in which industries, in which direction? So, what's your prediction?
My prediction is extremely short. Work hard, and you will succeed in the next 10 years, or maybe not.
All right, okay. Alexandra, from the entrepreneur's point of view, where do you think?
I'm an optimist. So I just remember that 5 years ago, there were, if we speak about, for example, startup exhibitions and competitions, it was about 3 to 5 trend areas, and all the events were mostly general. Nowadays, I see a lot of specific events. For example, I am a mentor at Fit Tech Accelerator in Russia, Women in Tech Accelerator. Speaking of women, 5 years ago, when I was just at the beginning, my friends and people often ask me if I know any women who founded successful IT startups, because frankly saying, it was not easy to enlist them. But nowadays, the situation is actually changing really fast, and there are funds that help people, help female entrepreneurs in Russia. There are such communities as Irina founded. So actually, I think a lot has changed within the last 5 years. And I think that it's the change will be faster, and the country will develop its startup ecosystem better. I hope so.
Okay, and Irina, what's your perspective?
Yeah, well, I'm adding up to hard work and to the optimism. I would say that everyone right now is a person who chooses. Not just the investor who chooses the startup, but the startup is choosing the investor. That's why we have this ecosystem of more consciousness probably around us. There is more diversity, but there are more risks. There are more values, but there are more disadvantages in some kind of decisions. So that's why it's, yeah, you can work hard and you can get it, or you can work hard and you can just lose the touch or whatsoever, and it's fine, because it's well, it's life, I guess. And maybe that's my summing up, that finally VC and startup scene is getting to be an institutionalized sphere. It's getting to be a business. It's not just a stream of happiness, enthusiasm, and whatsoever together with that. It's a sphere, it's a business, it's a sector, and now we can claim it to be so.
I can actually comment on the diversity of what Alexandra was mentioning, right? Like 5 years ago, just a couple of industries focused, and now quite diverse. Like at Emerge, this is our 4th year since we're doing this tech conferences, and for the same reason that the number of startups in general coming from our region is less than in Western Europe or in the US. For that reason, we were never putting any sort of industry focused boundaries, right? So that we could see what's actually out there, right, in the market. And this year we were quite surprised to get a lot of applications in health tech, but mainly med tech, like really complex stuff. We were also getting lots of startups in deep tech. So that's covering agro-tech, like food tech innovation, some space as well, some like really complex and like hardware stuff in sustainability areas. And then, yes, for sure, like B2C and like consumer apps, they were still sort of quite a big thing, but I think the more, since in that market the industries are quite saturated, like the market is quite saturated, so I personally struggle to see how these type of companies will differentiate themselves, especially when they go global, right? And also, like my personal sort of hope for our for our region is that the global community will hopefully, with the help of Emerge, with the help of what startup Sesamers is doing with these global tours, virtual tours, so the Western world will get to realize that we're not some kind of non-EU strange place with our own rules and stuff. We're actually countries that produce
real alternatives.
Yeah, and we also speak English. We travel the world. We understand the different laws. We collaborate with experts from different countries. We co-invest with other angels and VCs from other countries. And I'm really proud, actually, that year after year at Emerge, we managed to bring more and more diverse and global VCs to the event. Obviously, with online, it was sort of more manageable. But just as an example, 2 years ago, when it was our sort of last offline event in Minsk, before the COVID, before the politics, it was really hot, and we were really getting interest from companies all over the world. And we had at that time he was head of the product or product manager at Revolut, the guy from the UK. But now that guy, he is actually a partner at Sequoia Capital. And it's nice to stay in touch with this community and see that them showing interest in our region, not only just for fun, right? When it was offline, like just, out of curiosity to come and travel, but actually see the potential in startups coming from that region. So on that note, I would like to pass on to Tara to tell you more about the future events coming up on this tour.
All right, thank you so much, Alina, Emerge, and all of the speakers involved in today's event. You can rewatch the full session on our YouTube and Facebook channels in case you missed part of it. It was fantastic to have such a dynamic panel of experienced speakers. So next week, we're traveling to Australia, which is curated by Pause Fest. If you're not yet registered, you can go do that on tour.sesamers.com and subscribe to our blog at selected.sesamers.com. Thank you to the whole team who makes this possible and to French Tech for supporting Sesamers on tour. And we will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.